No, and you mentioned time there, and time is quite a nice segue into our second news story this week because we've heard quite a shocking story from the investment bank Goldman Sachs about some of their analysts and just how much they're working. So this was an internal sort of private survey that 13 of their employees did between themselves. I think really to raise the issue and so to make public the concerns they had. But they found they averaged 95 hours of work each week and slept for an average of 5 hours a night. Now, I read that and I saw that story, and I'm a workaholic. I work far too many hours, but I have to get my 7 or 8 hours of sleep every night, otherwise I just don't function. And 95 hours of work a week, I don't think I've ever worked 95 hours of work in a week. What about you? What's your average
Oh,
working week?
I have never worked 95 hours in a week. Good God. My average work week, I actually don't know. I was thinking about this, and because I freelance on the side, it can be a bit all over the place. But I would consider, a 50-hour week at the top end. I don't
Yeah.
think I'm working more than 50 hours that often. And I think, I'm kind of similar. I really don't dislike work at all. I am not somebody that is work shy or that. I mean, also, there's just nothing else to do. It's a theme of the pandemic. There really just isn't very much to do. And if I can do a bit of extra freelance work or something like that, why not?
Mm.
But 95 hours, it's not across 5 days because these people are also working Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
But if you tried to work that in a normal week, it would be 19-hour days. And then what,
Mm.
presumably you sleep under your desk and get up again. The only redeeming quality to this story is probably that these people are earning a fortune. I imagine that they're
Yeah.
on, easily multiple six figures plus. They're gonna. And also, this is in America. It's important to say.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the same as here, although I imagine the culture's not that different. And the thing is, they're so used to this. They've almost been just so kind of put into a situation where this is expected of them that they're now saying, oh, can you please cap us at 80-hour weeks, which is
Yeah.
still madness.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? And that's sort of twice, well, more than twice the average working week. And one of the interesting bits I saw in that report, and it's on the BBC website, I was reading this article, was they rated their own physical and mental health before they started a job, and then after they'd started a job. And for mental health, they rated themselves as 8.8 out of 10 before they started. That fell to 2.8 out of 10. Okay, this job is doing you some serious harm. And physical health went from 9 out of 10 down to 2.3 out of 10 after they started this work. And you really do have to wonder about any job that takes that much away from you and whether it's worth it, regardless of your remuneration and how much you're getting in salary and bonuses and how much status you get from working for a giant investment bank. Is
Mm.
anything truly worth that? Or do you think some people, particularly younger people, when they start their careers, think, okay, I'll give maybe 10, 15 years of my start of my career, well, I'm young and healthy and got plenty of energy, I'll go for it. And maybe that's when people decide to commute into cities like London. And then later in my career, I can take my foot off the gas a bit and step back. Is that an attitude you hear?
I think maybe, but I think a lot of people don't take their foot off the gas. I
Mm.
think that's the other thing, because I speak to a lot of people, and a lot of them, they're very high powered lawyers and things like that. And so they do work incredibly long hours. I'm not convinced they work 95-hour weeks. I think that's slightly something else. But they've been doing this job for years, and it's just
Yeah.
kind of endless. And there are people actually that won't mind working very, very hard and won't see this as exploitative. And you can argue, I suppose, because they are being paid really quite well, is it exploitative? And they are choosing to be there. I mean, they're all incredibly bright. These people have been to top universities, and to be honest, they could probably have their pick of the jobs actually if they wanted to, but they are choosing to be there. But at the same, personally, I see this as completely inhumane and abusive, which it's been described as. And I think it just speaks more and more to this idea that there is no enough. It is this
Yeah.
constant, we must come up with more money, more profit. We need to push people to work harder.
Mm.
And it gets to a point as well that I just think, why? You're already, as a company, Goldman Sachs, I mean, I don't know what the hell they're worth, multiple billions, if not trillions. Why do we need to be killing our labor force to get there? Or is it not the case that if these weeks are so long, could you maybe not consider hiring more people? And even then, I wouldn't even buy the argument then that, well, if we hire more people, we have less money to pay them, so your pay package won't be as good. Would you rather do the hours and have the pay or whatever? Because actually, if you're a company like Goldman Sachs and you're making that much money, you have money to pay people more.
Yeah.
It is that simple.
Yeah, and
So
you use
it
the
is
word
exploitative.
enough there, and that's a key financial planning concept, because I don't think enough people work out what their enough is, and they don't know what their number is. So there's a danger that you just accept every additional bit of responsibility, you chase every pay rise and every promotion, unless you quantify it in the first place, and you say, okay, to have the life that I want, to achieve all the things I want in life, all my goals, my dreams, my desires, I need this figure. And then you base your career decisions around that figure, that enough. And also you base your savings and investments around that, because ultimately the aim is to have that financial freedom away from employment, to say I've got a pot of money here, and once it reaches a certain level I am financially free, because that will sustain my lifestyle and my chosen amount. But people don't. We see it all the time. We see this drift, and people get a pay rise, and the first thing they do is they go out and they get a more expensive car lease, they move to a more expensive property, and they have this like lifestyle creep that goes along with pay rises. Whereas actually, if you're more intentional about it, you can cap that lifestyle creep, and you can say, okay, that's my number. And each time I get a pay rise, that extra money gets diverted into my savings, my investments, and it brings me days, months closer to financial freedom.
Yeah, and I feel actually like there's a very big move in the world of financial planning at the moment towards happiness rather than just trying to
Yeah.
acquire as much wealth as possible, which is a trap that I think we all fall into, even though of us that are lowly paid journalists. You think, well, as if I make X, that'll be fine, I'll have what I want. But actually then you get to X and suddenly it's still not enough, because that you don't have limitless spending power, which you think is important because you think that because we're so consumerist that is ultimately what you want.
Yeah.
And I think, as I think I've said before on this podcast, we are just way off in what we actually value. And we thought actually maybe the pandemic would change that. I don't think it will. I think things are kind of going to go back to very, very similar to what they were before, actually. But ultimately, if you're lying on your deathbed, I don't think anybody looks back and think, God, I wish I'd earned a few more thousand a year. I wish I'd spent more time at work. It's always I wish I'd seen more of my family. And another part of this, actually, that was talked about in the article, the people that are involved in these companies and they're working all these hours under the sun, not only are they physically suffering, but their relationships with other people are suffering, because they don't have any additional time to put that towards a relationship. And I mean, both friendships, although friendships can be maybe a bit more forgiving, but imagine trying to have a partner and build a life with them and work 95 hours a week. Those two things can't make sense.
No.
So yeah, I think it's all horrible, to be honest.
And it's probably where the huge remuneration packages help as well. Maybe attracting the sort of people that might be attracted to the money, not so much the time and availability of their partner. But yeah, it doesn't work, does it? It's really not good. And I wasn't particularly impressed with the response from the Goldman Sachs spokeswoman either, who said, we recognise that our people are very busy because business is strong and volumes are at historic levels. And I'll be very careful about what I say about that. I don't want to get sued by Goldman Sachs, but that didn't seem like a particularly compassionate response to what were obviously quite serious concerns about working practices and mental and physical health.